Hi, welcome to the video about rendering, lighting, and exporting passes from Blender and using them in Photoshop. This is especially useful for concept art and using 3D bases for Blender. This is not that useful if you're doing just game art and 3D asset production. So feel free to skip this section if you do not need it. So we have a scene. The first thing we are going to do is place a camera. So by default, you should have a camera, but if you don't, you can add one with Shift A and adding a camera. This is going to, and now if you press 0 on the numpad, which is not the way I bound it, but it is the way it will be bound on your Blender, you can just press the numpad 0 and then go into camera or go to view, camera, active camera. This allows you to go inside this view. So once I have this, the problem is every time I move, it's gonna exit the camera. If I want to reframe the camera, I can go into view and go lock camera to view. This allows us to reframe. That way I can frame my camera there. Once I'm happy with that, I can start setting up my lighting. So let's go there with Z and press rendered. You're not going to see anything. So that is why we will dive into lighting. So Shift A, you can add a couple lights. So point light is, well, it's a point light. It emits lights around it and has a normal fall off. You can adjust there in this panel. You can go in data and bring the power up, or also bring the radius up, which gives us softer shadows because the light is more diffused. Then you have sunlights. So sunlights is a directional light. It simulates the sun, so the rays are parallel. There's no perspective in the projection of the shadows. You can also change the angle to have something softer. You can change the power, you can change a lot of stuff. You can disable shadows too. Then you have spotlights, which I don't use a lot, to be honest. But you can change, for instance, the blend, so you have a softer fall off on the cone. And then you have the area lights. I use them a lot because they have a shape. They can be really similar to studio lights, or that you can have, or neons, or even bounce lights. So you can use it that way. And then also with the size, you can make it more soft or sharper. This is entirely up to you. So once you have this, be careful to uncheck lock camera to view to make sure you do not destroy your camera angle once you have set one. To be sure, just duplicate your camera so you have a copy just in case it goes sideways and you move it by mistake. There's still one underneath. So we will want to render this. So by default, we are, if we go there, we're in an engine called Eevee, which is a real-time engine. This is pretty useful for setting up lights because you see what you do and it's instant. So we're going to use Eevee to have a couple passes. So I'm just going to make the light a bit sharper. There, something like this. There we go. And then I am going to go into view layers there and activate passes. So I need some passes that we composite into Photoshop. I will use it mainly the shadow pass. I highly recommend having a shadow pass from Eevee and then switching later to cycles to have an ambient occlusion pass that is a bit higher resolution. So if I press render, then I'm going to have my render. Just have to wait a tiny bit. I have my render. It might be a bit grainy, so we can fix this. But also I have a shadow pass there, which is really, really nice, really neat. So I can go back there and have the samples higher, something like 128. I can also change the shadow quality. That might have been a bad idea. Nope, we're good. Let's just test like more samples and see how it looks. We can reduce the size a bit so we have sharper shadows, so it doesn't matter that much. Yeah, that is better. So let's just go back and not do this steps thing. And then go back to 64. That should be good. We're going to have a higher resolution render later anyway. So I'm going to save the shadow pass. So first, I need also to have a transparent background. So how do I do this? I go in there to render, and then I go into film and take transparent. Now, if I render my combine pass there, there's no background, which is exactly what I need. So I'm going to save. Let me find the proper... Let me find just a proper place with no NDA stuff. Yeah, I think this is fine. I'm going to call it base pass. And then I'm going to go to shadow, save it, shadow pass. And then I'm going to go switch to cycles there. So it's going to get grainy, but you're going to get like a much better like lighting. You have bounce lights, I have a lot of stuff happening. First, in render, you can set a max timer. So I'm going to set it to 20 seconds. Even 10 seconds is fine. And I check denoise. You can also check it in viewport if you want to see how the denoiser works. And then we should be good. Just go in the view layer, and then there's a lot there. Most of the stuff doesn't matter. We can have mist pass. We can have direct and ambient occlusion, and that is pretty much all we need for now. So let's just render this. And you can see it's progressively denoising, and then we have the render. So we have the combine, we have the mist, which is the depth. We have diffuse, have ambient occlusion. It can be a bit grainy, so we can fix this later. So let's use the combine one and save it. Let's go and find the diffuse direct. I actually like the diffuse direct more because there's no ambient occlusion. Yeah, I'm going to use this too. And then let me just grab my cat. Yup. And if you want a clean ambient occlusion, we can also go into compositing and check do new, and then just add with Shift A denoise node and just plug the ambient occlusion in it. And there we go. And I think now if you go back to the render mode, where is it? Oh, did I close it? Oh, my bad. I'm gonna render again. And then you should have an ambient occlusion pass that has the noise. Yeah, that is problematic. Let's go back to compositing and just like plug this there too. Then we should be good. Yeah, okay. Now we have an ambient occlusion that is soft. So I can save this and say AO. That's perfect. Let's just replug the image. There. Okay, so there's a couple more things we need for the compositing. I think we're going to use the normal. So let's go there and activate the matcap normal and disable outline there, and also disable the interface there. So you can just go to view, viewport render image. There. So you have a cool normal pass. I will tell you how we use it just after this normal pass. And then one last pass we're going to do is clown pass for easy selection. So how do I do this? I have materials there. I can go back to Studio, viewport display, have a very different color, and then assign this, for instance, to this. So I have a different color there, and also maybe a different color there. Yeah, and I go there, top left, top right, sorry, go flat, disable outline if it's still on, and then disable the interface. And I can do view, viewport render preview, and I can save this and call it ID. So once we have all that, we are ready to, so I'm going to import the combine pass underneath. I'm just going to use this as a mask and do a solid color. Perfect. Then I'm going to place linked my shadow pass. So one thing to note, the white part, I do not want white, so I'm going to Control L to levels and just push the white just underneath the gray, so 80% gray there, to have a black and white image. This I can put a solid color, and then Control Alt J and colorize my shadows. So I just have to put this in multiply and then have this in lighten, so I can have colored shadows. So this allows me to have control over my shadow pass. Then I can import my AO. So keep in mind the background is black, so it's going to be annoying. So just take this, control click, make a folder, and make a fusion mask. So we don't have to care about the rest. So I can put this in multiply and do the same thing I did there. So it's lighten, so I can control the colors of the AO. Problem is, if we go back to normal there, it's gray. I want white where there's no AO, so I just have to remap there, and then we're good. I can reactivate, and then we are sure it's only the AO that gets colored. There. And I can put this back in multiply. So I can have AO on top. Let's put it in darker tone. Yep. So, and then I can also, if I do not like the fusion mask thing, I can just put this back in normal, go in channels, control click, so you have a black and white mask, and then just put a solid color there. Of course, I have to invert the mask, so it's only the shadows. So this is a bit easier to control if you do not like the color fusion mask thing. I actually prefer that way. It's just destructive in that way because if I re-import anything, it's not going to update. I'm just going to have to redo the mask. But otherwise, I find it pretty neat. So we have AO. Let's put it multiply. There we go. AO on top. Then I can import the ID map. So the ID map is just going to be a layer where I can select color range and then just have like underneath all this I can have a couple masks for base colors that I can control in Photoshop. I can have some neat little stuff. One cool thing I can also do is go back to cycles and change the lighting. So let's go back to studio and rendered. If I want like some point lights, I can hide this in render there, and I can have some point lights since there. Something very small. I can render this. And then I can use a diffuse direct, save this, extra light, and then go in Photoshop, import this extra light thing. Just have to put it all the way to the top. And then I can remap this. So I have only a black and white mask like this. Go to channel, control click, and then put solid color there. And I can light something. Of course, it's going to look weird because it's very light. So I can just make everything darker. And then you can have a controllable light source there. That saves a lot of time. You can always edit the mask if you need. Yeah. that is how you can composite. There's also, oh no, sorry, I forgot the normal thing. So normal, cool thing is you can technically do a top light with it. So you can select color range, select everything that, like select that color, and it's going to select everything that points to the top. So I can do OK, and then add a top light with solid color, something subtle, with maybe a screen and not that much opacity. I can just put this in a folder with Fusion Mask and then paint out uh, the bottom part so it feels like a top light that sort of fades out as soon as it meets the ground. Maybe let's use a bluer hue. Yeah, something like that. So you can have like a non-destructive lighting for your illustration. Really, the sky's the limit in what you can do there and how you handle your passes. But this is generally the passes I get out of Blender for compositing for 2D illustrations. Hope you liked it, and this should mark the end of the series for the crash course. Yep, see you. Thanks for listening.